when I look at your career, I look at a movie like The Exorcist, I look at a movie like Cruising, and they got through the ratings board, and yet Killer Joe did not. Is that just the changing MPAA, or is it a more puritanical?
No. It's not that there is a more puritanical society. It's a change in the MPAA. I mean, I'm remaking my film Sorcerer. I'm not remaking it, I'm remastering it for the digital world, and it's going to have its world premiere at the Venice Film Festival. And on August 29th, where I'm getting the Golden Lion, which is the highest achievement award.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And they're going to run, on my birthday, on August 29th, they're going to run the new digital version of Sorcerer. I don't know how many people are going to be interested in seeing that. There seems to be a great underground interest in it. Whether that can translate to overground, I have no way of knowing. But I have an attachment to a lot of the films I made to try and keep them preserved. But which is not to say that I really think they're part of the new zeitgeist. I don't.
But those films could influence future filmmakers. I won't lie to you. Sorcerer is probably my favorite film of yours.
I appreciate that. My point about that, in terms of the ratings board, is I looked at the print recently. There have been 2 screenings of it at the Brooklyn Academy of Music and at the Cinematheque here in Los Angeles, where they had retrospectives of my films. And I was amazed to see that those films, without one frame cut in either one, those got a PG. That film got a PG rating. Today it would be at least an R, even though there's nothing in it.
Right.
But there's no sexuality, no language problem, no violence to speak of, or very little. It's all totally underplayed in those areas. And it got a PG, but it's probably the most intense film I've ever made. And it got a PG because the ratings board then was not rating intensity. Today they are. I mean, in my book, you'll see the passage that was described to me by Tracy Letts when he appeared before the ratings board. I wouldn't do it. I was directing an opera in Vienna at the time, but if I was free as a bird, I wouldn't have gone to that appeal, because I know what they are. They become censors. And that's not how the rating board was conceived, nor is it how it can do the most good, by being censors. But that's what they are. When they started the ratings board, it was simply to be a guide to parents about what was contained in the material of this or that film, so that the parent could decide if a child could see it. That's all. And they didn't tell you, don't bring your child. They didn't put draconian ratings on it so that it would become censorship. But today, that's what the NC-17 is. And that's because of gradual evolution of the ratings board into a censorship board, which is what it is. Now, if you notice, the major studios will never get an NC-17 because they control the board. The board works for them. The board works for the MPAA. So it's only the independent companies that it will occasionally draw an NC-17. It's like the board is flexing a muscle to show that they can do this. But the major studios have films that are just replete with violence and sexuality and language, and they draw an R at the worst. Some of them draw a PG. And the argument is, well, they're not real. That was the ratings board answer to Tracy Letts about Killer Joe. We viewed this as being real, and it's not a fantasy. And they quoted Saw. They said, if the quote was, if some guy dies in Saw, if there's a bunch of killings in Saw, we don't take it seriously and we don't give it an NC-17 because we know it isn't real. And so let's ask them, you mean because the violence in Killer Joe seems real to you, because it's effectively performed? You find that more troublesome than even more graphic violence in something like Batman or The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo? And they said, yeah. And that's what you're dealing with. The original board, as it was conceived, and it was first conceived at the time of The Exorcist, that picture got an R with no cuts. Today, it would probably not get released in any similar form. But it's being re-released this year because it's the 40th anniversary, and it'll be back in theaters, and then a brand new Blu-ray with 2 hours of extras that have never been seen. But it won't get an NC-17 probably because it's entered. It's entered the landscape, and it would be highly self-destructive, I think, if the board looked at but if any film ever deserved an NC-17, it would be The Exorcist. If any film ever deserved, at the time it was an X, and we all thought The Exorcist was going to get an X, but it was the first rating board, and they were extremely liberal, and their mission was, as I've stated it to you, to simply provide a warning to parents about what was contained in it.
But I do think that the ultimate taboo in the U.S. anyway is still sexuality. And with Cruising, you portrayed a world of very extreme sexuality. Did you not run into any ratings problems there?
Yeah, of course we did. And I actually shot 40 minutes of pure pornography, which I put into the film and showed it to the ratings board, knowing that they'd cut all or most of it, and I'd be left with the story that I wanted to tell. But I was able to shoot this pure pornography because of my relationship with the guys who were in the scenes and the people who ran this private club, the Mine Shaft. So I just shot everything that went on there and showed it to the head of the ratings board, and he, of course, meticulously had it slashed, shot by shot, and I was left with the story that I wanted to tell.
Right.
And some of it, some of the extreme sexuality even got into the picture, but not all, by no means all.
Well, I mean, you watch that movie and you feel like it pulls no punches the way it is.
Well, you should have seen the way I showed it to them. And many people just would not want to see that, straight or gay. Many people would not want to look at what I originally shot. And I realized that it was a game in the sense that I didn't take the ratings board seriously at that time, nor do I now, as a really serious arbiter of taste. First of all, they have no legal standing whatsoever. Secondly, they're a tool of the MPAA, which is the 6 or 7 major, say 7 major studios. Third, they operate in a totally arbitrary fashion. There's no guidelines or rules, like for driving on the road. You have to follow these rules. If you break them, you can get a speeding ticket or worse or something. There's just nothing like that the board has. An anonymous group of people sit around and arbitrarily put out these ratings. And it really, for the most part, is censorship, which is a word that they hate. But that's what they are. They're censors.